Welcome to Small Business Stories. I'm your host, Ronnie Godfrey. On today's episode, we have Nolan Howell, a 4-year Air Force veteran and the owner of Longview Diesel and Performance. We hope you like this episode, and as a reminder, if you're enjoying this content, please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. And now, here is Small Business Stories.
All right, so we're recording live and in person with the one and only Nolan Howell.
Yeah, hopefully just one. Don't know if the world can handle two.
I don't think so. So, man, I'm really glad that we're getting to do this. I appreciate you taking the time out. I know you're really busy.
No.
And but anyway, you were one of the first people that I actually approached about doing the podcast. And I didn't really know you super well, but I've been friends with you on Facebook for a long time and kind of followed what you've been up to and things like that. So I thought it'd be really fun to have you on. And so now here we are, and I'm excited.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, where you come from.
Okay, so how much time we got?
Well, we got all the time we want.
All right.
There is no time limit.
So originally from Big Sandy.
Really?
So yeah, went to school my whole life in Big Sandy.
I did not know that.
Yep. And then I knew that even the East Texas area as a whole, not a lot of opportunities just coming out of high school, basically. Wasn't a super great student or anything. C's graduate, basically, that kind of thing. I knew what I had to do to just, get out of school, basically.
C for credit.
Yeah, that's all you need. And so, I did that. And then I already knew, from, whenever I was like a sophomore or whatever, I'm going in the military, no matter what it takes. So went into the Air Force after I graduated, pretty much just had a summer and then was in basic in August. And so I did 4 years in the military. I was in the Air Force as a cop, and went to Iraq during that tour. And, I joined to see the world, and they stationed me at Shreveport. So
you really got your money's worth.
They really got their money's worth,
Yeah. So what made you want to be in the military so badly?
Just, opportunities, basically. I mean, of course, it's always a chance to serve your country, and it's something that's, kind of, just kind of near and dear to my heart, if you're going to be an American, it was a great way for me to basically just get started in life, like, what am I going to do? Like, go and work in the oil field, like everybody else, or, try and make it, without any money or opportunities, basically, or, go to Kilgore College, grade 13, extension of high school, basically, until your, grant money runs out. And that's what saw a lot of people do. And it just wasn't what I wanted. Yeah,
that makes sense. Did you, you talked about like serving in the military is kind of part of being an American, in like Israel, they have like a 2-year minimum service requirement for everybody.
Yeah.
Do you think that we should do that in America?
I don't think so. I mean, realistically, like, it's hard enough just to get enough qualified people to be in the military and actually care, and having a volunteer service is just one of those things that, I think that is really good. Whenever they did the draft in Vietnam, and people were really upset about that, and that's why that's part of why people took a lot of their frustrations out on Vietnam vets, and it wasn't the war they were fighting, but mainly just they were getting called up for drafts and stuff, and these people have their own lives and their own stuff to do, and it kind of soured the people on the military for a long time, and those vets really didn't get the credit that they deserve for a very hard war that they fought.
Yeah, Vietnam was a rough one, man. My dad served in the Navy, and he was drafted. Yeah, and he did. I think it was 4 years or 8 years. I can't remember exactly how many years it was, but he never really talked much about his service in Vietnam when I was a kid, or at least if he did, I don't really remember it. I mean, I knew he was in the Navy and everything, but it definitely. And I don't know if there was like some sort of repression of that because of how unpopular the war was and because of all that sort of stuff. But like in later years, as he's gotten older, he's, talked more about it and,
been more proud of it.
Been more proud of it. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if that's just because, of him getting a little bit older, or if it's because of society changing a little bit and being a little more accepting of those veterans from Vietnam. It's kind of faded into I wouldn't say it's faded into the rearview mirror a little bit, but I think people now have a better understanding of maybe the nature of that war and like the fact that a lot of the guys that were there didn't necessarily agree with why they were there.
But he signed his card and he showed up and he did his job.
They had a job to do. Yeah. And, whether they liked it or not, like, it's like, hey, you're drafted, you're going to go do this. Like, well, okay, let's take some lemons and make lemonade.
Right.
Know? But, so what was your experience like in the military? Did you enjoy it?
Oh yeah, it was good. I mean, it was a job. I mean, it was honestly pretty boring as far as just the stateside work. It's kind of a weird job in the military, like in the Air Force for their police force, because it's you have one side that's like civilian law enforcement side, and like you work on the base and you drive a regular patrol car and you go patrol base housing and stuff like that. And then you have another side that's like more security side. It's called security forces, and it's more security side. So they arm up every day with M16s, like 240 machine guns and stuff, and they'll go work out on the flight line like a security for like the bombers and stuff like that. And then they also work the gates for security against anybody who might want to come in the gate and do harm to military people. So a lot of people don't know, but you're actually not allowed to have firearms on a military base. As far as like if you're a service member or something, you can have guns, but it has to be registered, and a lot of them keep them at the armory for the police force, and you have to go check your firearms out. So you're actually not supposed to have them at your home.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So why is that?
I really don't know, honestly. I mean, I think that they're, kind of worried about maybe mental health issues or something like that. It's kind of, you walk off the base and it's, hey, you can do whatever with your gun, but on the base, it's, tightly controlled. And that was just a decision made at the top. And, nobody ever really talks about it. That's just, they just accept it and do it,
It makes sense when you talk about it from the standpoint of the mental health idea.
Because you have a lot of domestics and things like that on the base housing, and maybe they escalate a little further, and it's a high pressure job. A lot of people are away from home for a long time, whether they're deploying for 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, or a year. You can be away from home, and tensions happen at home, and maybe they don't want them to have access to firearms and stuff, and things do happen mental health wise in the military.
It makes sense. So you did 4 years in the military and you went to Iraq.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was the role of a military policeman overseas like that?
So we got kind of tasked to, at this time it was the surge, so it was 2008, and we were surging troops into Iraq to basically like lock this thing down. And so they didn't have enough Army infantry, and so they dispatched us what's called in lieu of, and so we were there in lieu of Army infantry. And so some of the guys, it depended on what mission you are. I saw some guys from the base, they were there and they did like big tower security and stuff. There was a huge prison on the base we were at, and so they worked in the towers just strictly for base defense. And then we actually got attached to a group called the 820th, which is like more of like a ground combat squadron. And so their roots are from like Vietnam, so kind of like what's called a like Red Horse Squadron. So they go in where there's no airfield, they secure an area, and the civil engineers come in, build an unimproved airstrip, and they're basically securing these places in the middle of nowhere, against enemies and stuff. And so that was kind of their mission as an expeditionary force. And so we got attached to them. And so we went with them, did their training, their pre-deployment training, and then we were just, integrated in their units and stuff. And so we did a lot of route clearance, because everything is on logistics. So you need to keep the routes clear from bombs and, going out and, finding guys that are firing rockets or mortars at your base. We would do escorts for the Army that was there running the big prison camp. We would have to do escort runs up to the airfield, and so we would be doing just normal, route clearance, basically as a depth finder. So, I used to be in the lead vehicle all the time, and, you just go out and find if there was a bomb or not, and so you protect the inner part of the convoy.
That sounds very risky.
Yes. And, hey, at 20 years old, you really don't not weigh the risk a lot, and it's your job, and so that's just what we did.
Wow. Well, I know it's kind of a cliche, but seriously, thank you for your service. You're definitely on the tip of the spear there, so to speak. So the big prison camp, and I don't know how much all this has to do with the business side of things, but I find it fascinating. What was that for, like military members that couldn't stay in line, or was that POWs?
Oh no, that was all POWs. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Like I don't think they called them POWs, but they were, enemies that we had basically captured from all around the country, and they would send them down there into like a large detention area, and then they would. The Iraqis had their own justice system at this point, and so we would ship them up to Iraq or to Baghdad for their trials and things like that. At the end of it, it felt like a giant waste of time because I think they ended up, whenever we pulled out, they released just like 50,000 inmates or something crazy. That was
out of how many?
Oh, there was a bunch. Yeah, it was a big military camp. It held a lot of detainees. Wow. That's what they call them. They're detainees. They're not POWs or anything.
Right.
They're being detained.
Yeah. So, so you did the military for 4 years, and then you separated.
Yeah.
Then what happened next?
I really didn't have much of a plan other than, hey, maybe now that I've got my GI Bill, I can, afford to, go to college, full time and kind of chill out a little bit. And so I ended up moving back to Longview. And
you were 22?
Yeah, just 22. And this time I had met my wife when I came back from Iraq. She was working the Sonic, so I slid into her DMs on MySpace. And
did you meet her at Sonic?
No, I had met her back in high school, and just kind of reconnected with her, and got into the DMs on MySpace, and just hey, it just took off from there. And so at this point, she moved back to Longview with me. She'd been living in Shreveport, and that's how I know that we're not married for money or anything, because I had a twin bed whenever we originally got together, and I rented a house with 3 other guys, so it was had nothing at all.
Straight up
just in the military
pad.
Yeah, it was a bachelor pad, but we had a twin bed. Eventually got a queen, bought on brand new, probably I don't know. It was in Shreveport, so it was like $250. It was a great deal. But it came new in the wrapper.
Brand new.
Yeah, no, it was in the wrapper, okay? So we upgraded, didn't no headboard or nothing, just a little metal frame that, you mount on the floor. But, hey, it wasn't sitting on the floor.
It's progress.
Yeah. So, I incrementally built things in my life.
Yeah.
So I moved back to Longview, and at this time, my buddy Ross he's also got out of the Army, and he hears about this. This is kind of they're doing another surge type thing, but this time in Afghanistan. This is like 2012, and no, it's like 2011. So he hears about a program that's a drone program that's being stood up by the Navy, and he said, "Hey, just apply for this job with me." So I applied to while I was going to college, and they called me, took me immediately. And they said, hey, 6 weeks, we need you in training. So, I dropped everything in my life and, packed everything up and went to training. And
what were you doing at the time? Were you in
just
college?
Going to college? Yeah, just going to college and, working out. That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Just taking the basic classes and stuff at Kilgore College. I knew I needed to work on, like if I wanted to do business or something, I needed some business classes. So, that's basically what I was doing at that time.
Yeah. Do you feel like that little bit of time you spent taking those business classes paid off when you?
Well, I took more after that.
Okay.
So those were more of like just foundational classes, but the ones I took later definitely did help, and I'm appreciative to Kilgore College for that.
13th grade.
Yeah, 13th grade. Yeah, it got a little more serious once you're actually taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And so once you get in like something specific, the instructors were actually pretty good for what we were doing.
And there's also that piece of it is what you make it.
It is 100%. Because the classes I took, at this time I was whenever I came back from Afghanistan, you were with a lot of people in there that were just doing it to do it, and you could tell, show up to class in pajamas and things like that, not really paying attention. But, as an adult at that point now, I'm like, okay, well, I need to do this and this is, important for me in the future.
I went to school at SFA with some dudes that were ex-military, and they were, they're on the GI Bill. Of course, part of it was that they were older than all of us.
Yeah.
But also, like, that 4 years in the military that they did, and, granted, this was around 2008 when I graduated high school and went off to college. And so, they'd seen some shit. they'd gone to Iraq, they'd been in Afghanistan. They were a different breed.
Most everybody that gets out, at that time, you had all done multiple deployments, and some of them were bad. Like as far as whenever we were doing that surge during 2008, I mean, there were guys from the Army that were doing 12 months and 18 months. I'd seen them stretch to 18-month Marines as well. Luckily,
on a deployment?
Yeah, you're on an 18-month rotation with your unit. 12 months was kind of the standard for the Army back then. I mean, because they just needed you there that long. Luckily, I was in the Air Force, so we only did 6 months, but 6 months is long enough, I promise you.
Yeah.
A year is crazy.
That's a long time, especially doing the kind of things that
exactly.
they're doing over there. Yeah. So anyway, you're going to college and you get in this drone program.
Yeah. So I drop everything, go in this drone program, and so I worked on. It was like a giant tethered aerostat. So it was like a big balloon kind of thing,
okay.
but it's like it has fins on it, and so it looks like just like a big bomb or something. If you've ever driven around like Florida or anything like that, any around the border areas, you'll see the big blimps. That's basically what it was. It was just a smaller version. I say smaller, it's still 3 stories tall, 75 foot long.
Dang.
But its whole mission was just to put the payload, which is like a camera system, radar, stuff like that, up in the air, like 3,000 AGL. And you could loiter that thing for...
That's above ground level for our non-pilot listeners.
So you could stay there. We could stay up for about 35 days without coming down.
What did it run on?
It's all helium, and then it had like a ballast system in the middle that had like an air pump, and so the helium was equalized to the outside air pressure. So it's not like you think of like a helium balloon you get like from the grocery store that you pop it with a pen and pop it. It's these things. I flew ones with over probably 50, 60 bullet holes in them before, and they're still flying. You would just be leaking a lot of helium at that point.
So what happens to the balloon when it's leaking all that helium?
So we just wait for, you would notice so we had, so you had a ground platform that the drone swung around on. It could swing a full 360, and the tether that went up to the aerostat was you had a pressure sensor and see how much pressure that the drone was pulling on there. So you knew that if you were losing pressure, that you would start losing pressure in that sensor, and so you would bring it to a lower altitude to keep the pressure up. You have a general range on where you need to keep it, but that cable also has a like carbon fiber weave with fiber optics in it. So it was equivalent of putting like, a tower on a camera and putting it, 3,000 feet up in the air. So
right.
it would hold itself there. So if it got, usually they can't hit it in the air. It's just, they won't come within a mile of the base. So, if they're shooting at it, you look at, you've got an arc range, and so it would just arc, and they could never hit it if they tried to shoot it with a gun. So the only times they got actually damaged were whenever we had to come down for weather and they caught it on the ground. And so they would save until there was a time that we were down for weather or something. It was a weather sensitive platform, usually anything over about 40 knots on the ground, and you're going to want to have that thing strapped down normally. So that's where I got my first like meteorology experience, that translated into piloting later. Was we would have to, we went through a meteorology school for our ground school when we flew these drones basically. And,
the weather side of flying is like one of my favorite parts. I love
it's very intense, That's especially for people that have never been in it. They just I just check with Mark Skirdo and see what Skirdo says.
Yeah, no, a whole different ball game.
I've
got a folder full of apps on my phone that are all dedicated to weather and different types.
And they'll all tell you different things too. Mm-hmm. You just have to know how to sift through it and make the best decision you can.
Yeah. What held that thing to the ground? Was it like drilled in, or?
Yeah. So we had like a whole, like kind of like a big like concrete drill type thing, and so we would, it would be anchored in the ground. The platform itself was already pretty heavy. It probably weighed about 18,000 pounds or so.
Okay.
That held that on, and so I go over there and. You're like a sensor operator basically, and so we would run 24 hours. So you worked 8-hour shifts, you and a flight engineer. So y'all would switch out. One of you would run the camera payload for a while, then switch back and forth.
What were y'all looking for?
Bad guys basically. So
were y'all doing this in Iraq?
Yeah, this was in Afghanistan. So we went to Afghanistan. So I spent almost, it was like little over 2 years in Afghanistan.
Okay.
And so at this time, we're just looking for bad guys. You can basically put that thing up, and you can lock down a whole area around you, like because the camera on there is ridiculously good, and you're getting full fiber optic picture from this camera all the way down on your ground station. And so you could track guys, know where all the bad guys are hanging out. You can see them with weapons. Okay, you follow them for 2 days. They finally lead you back to a commander, or where their stash is, or you can. The really scary thing is that they knew that we own the night, and I mean you can see everything at night with the infrared systems that we have on there, and so you would catch them out planting bombs or something on the side of the road. So it was a lot of just tracking and a lot of methodical, long work, and it really was a nice benefit versus like that of a grunt, that might be on the ground, with just a rifle, and you're just firing out there, or you have to shoot somebody, and you're like, is that really a bad guy? Well, at this time to kill these guys, I mean, like we had been following for days. We knew they were bad. They were doing bad guy stuff. They were firing at Americans, or our Afghan partners or something. So, you have that, ability to say, look, I know those were bad guys that we just took out,
Yeah. That probably makes it a little easier.
It does. Yeah. It does. So you don't struggle with I don't have any, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, I don't have any struggles with anything about I did over there. I mean, it was all for Americans, and we save lives, and I feel good about that.
That is good. And, in the course of my business, I do a lot of work with veterans, and I've encountered some that do have PTSD, and it's scary stuff,
Yeah.
And it
affects everyone differently.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I had one guy that was in Vietnam, and he had like flashbacks, and I didn't ever. His wife kind of told me about it, but I actually witnessed one at one point, and it was scary. It was like he left his body, and he was literally back in Vietnam, and he was making like sounds of like bullets whizzing by his head, and I was just, like, it was bone chilling, and that was kind of my moment where I was like, oh wow, this is real stuff. So anyway, I'm glad that you didn't.
Everyone's affected differently, I mean, it's just it's,
I would say his was probably an extreme case.
Yeah, and you can never know what will set you off. I mean, it's just you just never know. It can be anything for auditory or visual. Sometimes I'll just catch myself looking at the moon, and man, because everything used to be pitch black. You can't have any lights at night, and so the moon and the stars were always so beautiful over there. And so I just always look at the moon, and I just, for a second, you feel like you're, back there, again, and then, you snap out and you're like, thank God I'm home,
Yeah.
Something like that,
Yeah. Yeah, that's even if you have a good experience in the military, I mean, it's still hard,
Yeah.
And you still have you still got some memories that probably aren't the best, and you've got good memories too, but they all kind of mix together. So you did the drones for a couple of years, came back.
Yeah, finally at this point, I was doing 6 months on, so I would work for 6 months straight on a base that was like, I mean, it was just combat outposts and stuff that we would be launched out of, and it was, there's 60 man, basically 80 man outpost, so it's not very big, by maybe like I don't know, like maybe like the parking lot at Academy or something is basically how big it was. You know? So it's not very big at all, like these bases were. And so maybe you get on a good one that's got 2 parking lots at Academy, And so my first year I was in the east in the Kunar, and that was a very hot area, and basically it's right on the Pakistan border. And so like before fighting season went in, all of them, they all go back to Pakistan and stay there for the winter, especially the foreign fighters and stuff. They're not Afghans. They're imported basically from other areas. They would come and fight. Yeah, a lot of. a lot of them.
There was no fighting in the winter?
No, they basically didn't. No, they just basically holed up for the winter. So spring, summer fighting season, and then they would, whenever the mountain passes would freeze over, there wasn't a lot of fighting in the wintertime at all.
Interesting. And, so what did you guys do during that time?
It was boring. It was very boring. I remember at one point, because we were, that platform is also sensitive to icing and stuff like that. So when the icing level gets down to ground level, you can't fly. I remember we didn't fly for like 30 days straight. And so it was so boring. I played Skyrim,
Oh, man. I got so many hours in that game.
I know. And so that was a really good opportunity to get a lot of hours on that game, to the point I was like, oh my God, like I'm just ready for the snow to melt. And so they would always shoot at us on the way out, and then they would go over to the restock, and they would wait the winter out in Pakistan. And then, whenever fighting season kicks back off in the spring, they come back over the pass, shoot at us again. They've got all this new, they always got, a bunch of mortars and stuff they want to fire at us. And, they'll a bunch of fighters, and then they'd move on to other areas and go to the Helmand and stuff. And and so I was worked 6 months on and 2 weeks off. So I came home for 2 weeks. I only stayed here for like a week, and then we went to I think the first break we took, we went down to the Atlantis resort, and we stayed there for a week. Me and Cindy.
Were y'all married at this point?
Yeah, we've been married. Yep.
Okay, so y'all got married, and then pretty much right away you went to.
Basically, yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, how'd she take that?
Yeah, I mean it was rough, but she knew that I was working and setting us up for our future, and so hey. She started going to school while I was gone at this time too, and I was making really good money overseas. You get paid really good as like a contractor over there, but it's kind of, they need it.
So you were civilian.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you're basically, they had, whenever the Navy first started this drone program, they had just regular E1, E3, like lower enlisteds, like trying to fly these things, and they would just crash it. It's like a $5 million drone. And so they would crash it, and then you can't really fire them or like do anything with them. So like they were like, man, we need somebody better to come in here and do these. And so then they wanted officers. Well, then you don't have enough officers for that. And then like you have to pull 12 officers to do this. So there was like, this is like the perfect thing that we can get just contractors that have prior military experience, to come in and just do this job for us. And so that's what we basically did, is they paid, a set rate, and we would go over there, and they basically had us our whole packages, everything. We're attached to bases. We would bring everything ourselves. All the base needed to do was just add an area that our drone could launch from, and we brought everything else ourselves: our own generators, our own living situations, our own office building, office connex, ground control station, our own internet system. Everything was brought for us. We were totally prepackaged units, that got deployed into the area.
No kidding. That's cool.
And, the Americans, and so that the first year I was with the Americans, and then my second year I ended up going down to the Helmand, and I was with the second year I was with the Royal British Marines. So I spent a year with the British Marines.
Okay.
And that was a different experience than the Americans for sure.
How?
The way that we fight a war is very, it's expensive, and they don't have the money to fight a war the way we fight a war. I never thought about, whenever I went to to get lunch, about how much it cost or how much was allotted to feed every person on the base per day.
Right.
They would tell you got $1.80 to feed you per day for each person on the base. And the
Brits would.
Yeah, the Brits. Yeah. And so but the Americans, whatever, it just, whatever it costs, But, we always.
What about the whole the Army marches on its stomach thing?
It does, yeah. But I mean, it is to a point. They have a budget, They have to stick to it, and so you only got good things to eat every once in a while, and sometimes they wouldn't run chow at all. And so, my first base I went to, they would only have hot chow for dinner, and so you ate breakfast and lunch as a MRE. You would get a hot dinner, and then they didn't have we didn't have bathrooms or anything. You would they had like these porta potties that had they were just built out of plywood, and it had a toilet seat on it. And so you would grab an empty bag, and so the bag is like these self-contained things, and you reach in the bag and pull out a big plastic kind of like trash bag thing, and you wrap it around the seat, and that's where you go to the bathroom, is in there. And then you unwrap it from the seat and stuff it all in the bag, and then you toss the bag in a burn barrel whenever you're on your way out of the bathroom. And so that was how you use the bathroom, and we didn't have showers either. We had just like a like a camp shower out there that in our little area, and so you just had like you would get your settings right. You had your perfect recipe of how much kettle water you needed to warm up to put in the shower bag. With a ratio of liter water bottles. To make you would get you got like 2 or 3 gallons, and that's your shower. And so you're like, okay, well I need 3 liters. That's the perfect heating. To get me a hot shower.
Wow.
Yeah, and so you just you go out there and you hang it on a D-ring and you take a shower real quick. And this isn't like the open, like you've got like a little like thing, but like, I mean, it's like in the winter it was cold. And so you're taking a shower pretty quickly. You get yourself wet, throw the soap on, and then you rinse off, and that's it.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's pretty austere. I
would have never thought that.
Yeah. But I mean, then what you had been at the American bases, they had actually they had started the compound, and they actually had taken over a couple of little buildings, and so we actually had showers built out. We had 2 showers in there, and so you actually had running water that was running from like 1,000-foot tank, and stuff like that was built out. But as far as like when you go to the Brit base, like they didn't have anything. Now the second British base I went to, they had a few shower trailers and stuff, and they really loved having us there, and there's only 6 or 8 of us, and so they let us use all the officer stuff, as far as the officer showers and stuff. No, we didn't have to use the regular bathrooms and stuff, so that was pretty nice. But they were fighting a war on the budget. Just everything from their guns. They used was a rifle called like a L82, I think, and that rifle is like it's like a bullpup, and it's like 12 pounds compared to our M4, which is only 7 pounds. And you're like, oh, it's only 5 pounds. Well,
that's a lot.
When you carry that thing around, they don't. And we have nice mag, like P mags, the plastic mags and stuff. They have the old steel mags, you slap in there. So just their weight, everything that they had that they needed, probably weighed twice as much as the Americans had to carry.
Jeez.
But I'll tell you, they were in better shape, like 100%. I mean, those dudes, because they had to like carry radios that were 40 pounds versus, we had a little 5-pound radio pack, that was satellite communications, they were in better shape. I mean, when we work out, we didn't have a gym at that base. But we had an open area that had steel plates on it, and that was only because we needed somewhere to land the bigger helicopter on this base. That's how we were resupplied with everything, was helicopter. And so you would go out there and work out on this big metal plate, and it was like watching 300 Spartans, because they all have the same shorts issued. They're like the tightest and like shortish like bicycle shorts, but nobody wore a shirt, because these guys are so pale. They're all just trying to get some sun before they go home, Yeah. And so, it was. It got really good shape there, but you really didn't. You didn't have any exercise equipment at all, and so, everything was done just body weight, out there on a steel plate, and so you were rough living.
If you're creative enough, and you know a little bit about what you're doing, you can wreck shop with a body weight workout.
Oh yeah, no, they did. Yeah, they did. Yeah, they put me through it for sure. But they loved having us there, and the Americans. American commanders, because we're tasked, and so as a drone, you're tasked. We would go on missions, or we're attached to somebody's mission, and they would task us to do things, and the Americans, they had so much at their disposal. They would have, F-18s up there flying. They'd have a Predator drone. At some points we even had C-130s on missions. With the gunship. And those are super rare to have. I only had one of those one time, and but they just had so many assets as far as ISR, which is like drone type stuff, and that they really just our drone kind of went by the wayside. They would just use it for just close in stuff. But I'm telling you, the Brits, we were all they had. So those guys loved us, did whatever we needed. They were Johnny on the spot with us.
Because, y'all were basically like the eye in the sky.
Basically, yes.
There's, a group of bad guys headed this way.
Basically, yes. But and so it also changed the base defense as well. So if we had bad weather and we were down, they would have to man extra towers, and they would have to take other preventative measures because now they can't see anything coming. And our payloads were we demoed a couple of different payloads on that, and I think that my NDA is up on it, so I can talk about it. But we had the coolest one we had was just like the radar payload that was attached behind our camera, and we would get shot at from a certain area, and so we'd set this up, and so it's a rotating radar dish behind our just a real small payload behind our camera. And we could just drag on the map just a little section right there and just say, okay, we want to know if there's any movement in this section anytime. And so it would just sit there, doesn't matter if it's 1 day, 10 days, 30 days, and it would just watch that section. And if anything moved in that little sector that we had identified, it would pop up with an alert. You can either choose to just hit one button and it swings your camera directly to what it was just looking at, or you can keep on with what you're doing and go back and look at it later or something. But no, it was pretty nice. Most of the time it was just rabbits, but on the times that it was bad guys, you have them by the balls, because now they would sit up and they would wait 10, 20 minutes or so before they start shooting at you. They're probably waiting for other people to get in position and stuff. But now we've seen them before they've even fired a shot, and so now we can start. There's a big process that involves with dropping an airstrike or anything like that. Yeah. And so you could specifically now you've got that process 20 minutes faster, and so now by the time that they're ready to shoot, you're ready to hit them back or take that strike, whatever you had there.
Did y'all have to wait for them to shoot first before you dispatched
No, I mean
them?
You could pretty much, you could say, hey, these guys are setting up to hit us. We have a 4K picture of these guys right here. Yeah. They've got a PKM. Their guns are in the open. They're pointing at us. We know that they're going to take the shot. Yeah. So at that point, you could go ahead and start rolling your package and see if there's any aircraft around. Jets, they really did not care about a jet, even though the jets are carrying 500-pounders and stuff like that. But I'm telling you, rotors, those guys were so scared. If they heard a rotor, they were gone like rabbits, man. They were running through the forest, and it's because they were terrorized so bad by the Russians with the Hahn gunships. Yeah. I mean, rotors, they are absolutely terrified of rotors.
I can believe it too, because there's something pretty terrifying about a flying object that can stop over a position and just sit there and melt you down with hot
I'm telling
oil.
you, if you've seen them, they have their helmet tracking. So whenever the gunner's looking left and right, that 30 mil cannon is sitting there tracking which direction it's going. I'll say the only plane that they're scared of is just the A-10s, obviously. Yeah, they're so scared of those because obviously they're flying low, they can see them. And even there were times where we were getting mortared and stuff and we didn't even know where they were coming from, but you would ask if there was an A-10 in the area, they would come fly by and they'd fire flares off real low. And that would usually be enough to scare whoever it was off from doing anything because they knew that thing would just destroy them.
Yeah, and not only that, but those jet engines that are on that airplane have a very distinctive sound.
Oh, yeah.
They don't sound like a...
But you can visually see it, it's just like you hear a jet flying right now at 30,000 feet. You really can't, you can just hear the sound, and it's real quiet, and just up there, they would fly for a long time, but... they were really scared of rotors or like an A-10 for sure.
Yeah, I think I would be too.
No, 100%. I was really funny because they use these big like almost ham radio things to communicate, and it's all unsecure. They don't have any type of secure communications, and so our own interpreters would listen. Like we have an intelligence section, they would listen to those guys talking on their radios and basically say, "Hey, these guys are getting ready to go do something," or they use a lot of code words and stuff. But the guy was just laughing, and our interpreter was, and we're like, "What are you talking about?" We had a couple of Apaches up, and he's like, "Oh, these guys are just talking shit," and we're like, "What are they saying?" He's like, "Oh, he's like just basically bragging to the other guys or just talking to the other commanders, like, I wish they would just land that thing right here." And he would say it, he called it an eagle, land that eagle right in front of me and get out and fight me like a man, blah blah blah, And so like, yeah, bro, I'm sure they would get out of the Apache and fight you, if you want to square up with them, you're like 120 pounds, so
yeah, that probably wouldn't go too well for them either.
No,
honestly.
no. But it was just funny, they're just talking trash like any regular, soldier would,
Yeah, if you're not talking a little trash, you don't believe in what you're doing. So anyways, you got through all of that, came back stateside.
Yep.
For good.
Yeah. So at this point, they offered me a very good sum of money to either go on another drone program up in Maryland, or there was a lot of packages that we'd rolled in. We basically collapsed like 90 or 100 different ones of these drones. They all go back to a logistics place. Then they all get shipped back to the States because they're so expensive. Most of the stuff we left there and scrapped, but all the very expensive stuff needed to be packaged and put together and then brought back over, and they needed somebody to deal with all that. And so, they had wanted me to do that. And I was, at this point, I'm like, man, I'm so burned out from being over here. Like, you could pay me $1 million a year. I'm not going to do it, And, it was, I mean, I'm telling you, you just hit that point, And so the reason that I was in that position, though, is because everybody came in as the same level of position. You were all paid the same from your company. But I kind of took it upon myself, and I became, whenever I came down to the second year, I went to mid-level tech school, which is basically where you're a field service rep. Like, these drones are a lot of networking, a lot of issues, and you're talking about you're working on these things in austere conditions, and so you have to be really good. You have to know everything about these machines. And so, like, I did some classes with the contractors before I came back, so I got a certification for it. And then they also, at the end of my first year, for the last few months, I was what's called like a site commander, or mission commander, basically. So you're in charge of all the other 8 guys that are there, and it's a lot of extra stuff. You have to do the reports, and you make the decisions whether the drone flies or doesn't fly, or what it does. And so my second year, that's the reason I got moved down to the south, is they didn't have enough mission commanders, and they definitely didn't have enough people that had mid-level. It was called mid-level tech. They didn't have enough mid-level techs either. So I filled both those roles. I didn't get any more money for it until the second year. Then they actually did give a bonus for doing that, because it saved them a lot because if you hit a point that the drone's just, I don't know what's wrong with it, you guys send somebody out here, well, then it's days before they've got to get a chopper, get somebody, fly them out there, and he fixes it in 5 minutes or whatever, probably resets something, and then he has to fly back. And there's only so many places that the full field techs from these companies could be out. So that's the reason that they did that, is they were like, hey, if you go to school, we'll pay you a little bit more money. I was like, oh, okay, well, I took the initiative myself anyway. So I always wanted to learn more. Yeah. And there were a lot of technological networking and stuff. So I got a lot of tech experience doing that. Yeah. But let's see. So I was finished with that, and yes, I came back from Afghanistan. I moved back to Longview again. So at this point, we had also built a house out in Diana, where we still live right now. And so we finally had our own house, and weren't renting anymore, which is really great. And my wife was working as an accountant, and I started going back to school again. And while I was going to school, I'm like, man, I was getting pretty bored, and I ended up talking to Casey Johnson. He owns Longview Bridge, and he knew that I was like a guy that loved trucks and cars and stuff like that, because I still had a race car at this time. And so he was like, hey, I need somebody to come and run my trucking department and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, I can do that. And so I don't think he was really sure about my skill set, because he puts me in his front office first, working with Reese, and he just had me doing these really monotonous budget analysis on their jobs. They did a lot of they do road and bridge construction. Mm-hmm. And so you're just digging through these jobs, and you're like, oh man, they use 5 times the amount of trucking that we allotted for in this estimate, So it's kind of monotonous, but I did it and did a good job. And so after a couple of months, he's like, okay, well, can you go down here and run my trucks and stuff now? And I'm like, yeah, okay. So I go down there, run his trucks for a while. I end up just dispatching dump trucks and stuff like that every day. And then I ended up taking over their shop space too, where they had 14 mechanics and, field service trucks and haul trucks and all this stuff. And so I did that for about a year.
And how old were you at this time?
So I was probably 27 or so.
Okay.
And so it was a lot of responsibility, because they had a lot of jobs all over the place, and you had to keep a lot of things running. I was getting 100 plus calls a day, every day, dealing with all the superintendents, making sure everything ran smoothly. They had the equipment they needed to get the job, because they didn't have a machine there. You had that phone
on your ear all day, didn't you?
Oh yeah, all day. I had to carry a notebook with me, because I would do a 30-second call with somebody and be like, hey, I need this, this, and this. I have to write it down real quick before I'm switching over to the next call. I felt like I was running a phone operation or something, a switchboard operator. Hello, Chicago.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, you're sitting there with a notebook and writing all this stuff down. You're just passing it off to the next person.
Yeah, so then if you get a minute, then you start hitting stuff in the line, to get it knocked out, and so it taught you organization and stuff. So at this time too, I also my brother is a mechanic, and he went to work at a shop in town, and he's like, hey, he's like the the guy that owns the shop, he's getting divorced from his wife. She runs the front end. Like, he needs somebody to run this place. And I'm like, man, I'm pretty burned out at this point. So I'm like, yes, I would love a change of scenery at this point. So I go start this shop, or start working in this shop, and it's a diesel truck business. And so I do that, for about 6 months or so. And it was doing pretty poorly at the time, comparatively, especially compared to the businesses I run now. But it was doing pretty poorly. It was pretty in the hole. I honestly, as a business owner, I don't even know how he even hired a manager, because I probably wouldn't have taken the chance given how negative the accounts and stuff were, it was just not a great financial situation. But it took me about 6 months, and I ended up, you're really focusing, helping the guys in the shop, and, really turning things around, and it went back positive. So things are going great. And at this time, I'm also going to night school. So I would work all day, and then at 6 p.m., I get off at 5, I drive across town at 6, and so I'd grab a sandwich on the way, eat in my truck, and then I would go in and do night school till 9 p.m., and that was like 3 days a week we would do that.
And you were doing business courses?
Yes, yeah. So I was taking my business courses at that time, things like business law, things like that, things that, you still deal with on a daily basis, and so it was a real help. But, I knew what I needed to do, and so I just, it was a lot of work, and, my wife put up with the long hours and stuff. At this point too, she also got bored of being an accountant, and she's like, hey, I want to be a police officer. And I'm like, oh, well, like, I wasn't sure about it at first, because she's a very nice person, and you deal with the worst people in town. You're not dealing with good people all the time in police work. And so, right. I was really worried. I was like, man, not for her safety, but more for like, man, this is like she's really gonna be unhappy with life. Just seeing crappy people in crappy situations over and over and over. You gotta work bad wrecks, you gotta go domestics, and just a lot of BS all the time. I knew what it was like, and so I was like, you sure that's what you want to do? And she did it herself, and, she applied, she went through the academy. At this point, she was, I think she was working on going to the academy, or going to the academy at this point, I want to say. And so after 6 months, we're net positive in that business. And I'd never thought of this before, but he came to me and he's like, hey, like I'm pretty burned out on this. I've been doing this for a long time. He's like, do you want to buy this business from me? And I'm like, well, I never thought of owning my own business. I didn't think that was an option for somebody like me, like I thought I was just, hey, best I can do is work for somebody and make some good money and have a good life,
I think a lot of people get stuck in that rut.
Yeah.
They don't think of themselves as being worthy, or being capable, or being able, or whatever to own their own business. I was one of those people. I grew up the son of 2 employees. Well, 3 really. I had my stepmom too, who was in my life for most of my life, and they were all employees. Never owned businesses. None of that kind of stuff. And so I was a lot like you. I went to school, got a quote unquote good job teaching.
Yeah.
And was going to ride out my 30 years and then do whatever. And somewhere along the way, I was like, I don't think I want to do this forever, And so then it was like, okay, well, what else what I want to do? And so, it kind of started leading me down that path. And well, now here we are today. We both own our own businesses.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what it was. Just like a switch, like I'd never thought of it before, and I'm like, yeah, man, I can do this, Yeah. I mean, I literally do it right now. The only thing that the owner was doing was signing the checks at the end of the week, Right. I mean, it was just, I was like, man, I can really do this. So, we come to an agreement on price, and, he's like, hey, I have to wait until our divorce is finalized, because, she's like a, 50-50 in the business with me or whatever. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I knew that was going to be a few months. So I keep putting in work, and with the intent, like, hey, I'm going to, like take this thing over, blah, blah, blah. And so I think it was like another 6 months or plus go by.
Did you guys sign an agreement?
No, we didn't have any agreement and so signed at that point. Yeah, it's all just verbal, you know. And so 6 months later go by, and they start finalizing their divorce and all that, and suddenly the business is worth more money now, because I put a lot of sweat equity, and now it's worth it's doing better, and so comes back and he's like, I want some more money for this, or hey, you got to buy me out on this, and this. Oh, and don't have another job lined up, so you're gonna need to pay me X amount of dollars, and I'll just stand here and like stale and work in my bay or whatever, blah blah blah. And so I was just, I was really, praying about it and just really didn't know what to do. And my brother kind of pushed it over the edge, and he was like, he got into it with the guy, and he's like, just F you, like we'll just start our own thing, with blackjacks and hookers, and that kind of thing. And I'm like, you know what, we can do it, And so I worked in Afghanistan. I saved money, and at this point, my brother also rented a shop on Whaley, and it was like a little 2-bay shop, and didn't even have running water or anything, but he kept his tools and stuff there.
Right.
And so we gathered all of our stuff on a trailer, and I'm just like, I can do this on my own, and it's just cheaper if I just start it from scratch. And I don't have any brand recognition or anything, but I can put the work in. And I mean, I may not be the smartest person, but I'll definitely work hard. And that's America.
Yeah, it is.
It is. You just gotta be working hard. Well, there was a gentleman named Bob Garner. He goes by Dude, and we'd known him for 10 plus years. And he worked with my dad at Energy Well Fab. And he also, like my brother would work on his cars and stuff. He was also a real good customer of Joe at One Stop. And Joe even did some custom headlights for him. And they said the Dude on the headlights. But
cool.
But he's also the one that he sold me my first.
Was he like a big Lebowski fan or something?
Yeah, he kind of looked like him. Oh, okay. He really did, honestly. Yeah, he was a big guy like that. And he also sold me my first custom truck. I had an old 89 Chevy, but he sold me a 92, and he's like, hey, I got a 4.6 drop with this thing and a Corvette roll pan, so you'd be the coolest guy at Sonic with this you have Corvette lights. You shave your tail lights and put the Corvette lights in the bumper, and you can just C-notch it right here, and you can just drop it and have a 4.6 drop on it, and I was like, man, I'll be the coolest guy ever. And so
driving this slam truck.
Yeah, and he sold it to me way cheap, like he's just a good guy like that, honestly.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of money. I was working at Berkshire's at the time. I think I made like $80 a week or something carrying groceries out,
Yeah.
And so he had kept up with us through the years, and my brother had done some brake jobs and stuff for him. He was like, hey, y'all want to start a shop? Just let me know. I'll lend you some money to invest too. And I was like, okay, well, I've got money that I've saved from Afghanistan. If Bob wants to go in too, I said that would be real good. So Bob was invested with me. He placed that trust in me. I mean, like no contract, no nothing. Just hey, I'll wire you the money. I took every dime that I had, and we put it together, and I was able to make a little money and go across town, and I rented a shop. The shop was way bigger than what I even needed. And I was like, but I know I can, fill it. So I bought some cheap lifts from some Mexicans in Dallas. They came and installed them. They're $32.50 a piece, and they were 15,000-pound lifts. So I'm like, man, I can get by with these lifts. Oh. And we had at this point, in the in-between time, we had every piece of equipment and tools that we had on my 16-foot car hauler trailer. It was wrapped up with a tarp, and I'm talking, this is probably $50,000 worth of stuff on this. And our buddy Chris Price, he was there for us. He let us keep it at his house, and we had to get over to our new building and get everything unloaded. He was there the whole time, helping us unload stuff and just never ask for anything. But that's the kind of person that he is.
Yeah.
And so these people helped out, is what I'm saying. And they didn't ask for anything, and felt like that was a real big vote of confidence and just it makes you want to do better, not just that because now it's your business and your name on it, but you have to start from scratch. There's no playbook. Nope. There's plenty of people that tell you, oh, you've got to have a mission statement and have this, those are college answers. I'm going to be realistic with you. Like running a business on a shoestring budget, starting it up, man, you don't care about a mission statement. You worry if you're going to make payroll next month,
Right.
So a lot of things that people get caught up in, they get lost in the weeds and, miss the trees, whether they miss the forest for the trees or whatever. They focus on small things that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things,
Right.
And so my brother was my only mechanic, and I was running the front office, a real efficient operation,
So were you did you have some mechanical skills? I mean, were you
Oh
out
no,
there
I'm a
turning some
terrible
wrenches?
mechanic. Yeah, no, I don't turn wrenches at all. I know everything that goes into it. I can tell you every part, every kind of issue that you're going to see. You know, like I can look at it, I can listen to an engine, tell you exactly what's wrong. But no, I don't know what it is. But I would hate to be a mechanic as far as like sitting there under the hood for 5 hours swapping this turbocharger out. I just cannot do it. I know, like, okay, swap turbocharger, need to go to this truck, we need to do this and this. Okay, go call this customer back, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I'm just moving too fast for you. And I don't know if that's some kind of like, I don't know if that's the definition of ADD or what the issue is, but my mind just moves really fast. And I can't sit there and do it. I just really can't.
Yeah. Well, I think there's all different kinds of people in the world. And there's those people that are wired to focus on a particular task for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then there's those of us who I'm kind of like you.
Yeah.
Like I bounce around from one thing to another. And I have such a hard time with it because there are things in my job that require,
you have follow through. Yes.
Prolonged focus.
But
and it's like I'm sitting there at the computer and I'm doing this thing and then I'm like, oh yeah, I need to do that thing.
Yeah.
And like I'll find myself switching to that thing, and I'm like, no, stop
do this, yeah,
like do the thing you're supposed to do,
right?
Write it down and do the thing later, So,
and that's why I have a notepad next to my desk, and so when I think of that thing when I'm doing this thing, I'm like, okay, here, I put it on my notes, and the next free second I have, I look back and I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do that, and so that's how I can juggle 10 different things and I can all make it happen, and so that was really good, and it really let me start a business on a shoestring, is having that ability to do that and just load the work up, and like after the first couple of weeks, our buddy Anthony Sanchez, he came to work for us too, and so I had 2 technicians now.
Yep.
Well, neither one of them liked to get up early, so I would get up there 8 a.m. I'd be the only one there, no customers, no nothing. The first couple of weeks I'm sitting there, like nobody calls or anything. I'm just sitting there, and these guys, they'd get there about noon, because they would work late, so they would stay there till like midnight every night working on stuff, but then they didn't get in, so it was very quiet mornings, for a long time. But I would show up every day on time, and just sit there at my desk and do whatever work I could do, and chase some leads down and just do anything,
So
just to push it forward.
When you were first starting out like that, and business was slow, what did you do to go out and find business or attract business?
Social media, baby. Yeah. I mean, that is the cheapest bit,
because this was around 2015, 16 in there.
Yeah, 16. I started in 16, December of 16. So we're all growing up on 10 years now.
Wow. Congrats on that.
Thank you. But I mean, you know as well as I know that social media is probably, I mean, especially at that time, man, they hadn't killed the algorithms, and so I could do very cheap sponsored posts on my things and just advertise. The big thing was having a easily Googleable name and getting an AdWord account set up. And that was the biggest thing that for my business that would bring business in. And so now if you Google anything, my business is called Longview Diesel and Performance. So you Google, hey, I need a diesel mechanic in Longview. Well, I have AdWords bought, and so it pops up and has all these keywords, and you just hit a couple of my keywords. And so now I'm the first result that pops up. And so just, word of mouth. I already had kind of an existing customer base. Of course, everybody already knew me from working on diesels the last couple of years. And so a lot of customers looked around and found me, and so then they brought that business there. I didn't go out and search out customers that we had before. It was just, at the other business, it was just came organically. Yeah. But social media was definitely the biggest, and so, I'm kind of not keeping up with the times with the kids and, the reels and stuff like that. I don't like promoting myself is the main thing.
It's evolved a lot. And I kind of share in that sentiment. I know that social media is the best way to build my business. And my wife literally does social media for a living. Right. That's kind of how she makes her living. And, I do okay, but I just always feel like, man, I'm leaving so much on the table because I don't do a lot of TikTok. I don't do a lot of Instagram. I'm not real big in creating reels. Yeah. And the thing about my work is, like, the nice thing about what you do is that
I have a product.
You have a product. Yeah. Yes. And like one guy that I think does a terrific job is JT Smelly. Mm-hmm. He does a really good job of posting things on social media that are cool and interesting. Like he's got this car or that thing or whatever. And he's like really dialed in on that stuff. But the luxury that you guys have in the automotive business is that you have a product,
things to show off.
Yeah, like you open up a hood and you have the stock engine, and you take some video of that, and then you do all the stuff. You add a cold air intake, and you add a turbo, and you put in a whatever, and then you take an after video, and it's like, oh my god, like this is huge. Whereas in my business, like
another house.
Yeah,
it's a 2,000 square foot, in the middle of Longview. Cool.
Yeah. So you definitely have to be a little more creative in the real estate world,
right? But then you have a lot of you in that same side, you have a lot in the real estate world that are huge self promoters as far as like, oh my god, just like Grant Cardone 10x, like they are blending real estate with being your guru and stuff, and you have to find that line between like. I had this discussion with Cameron Williams, real good friend of mine, and he's getting into a lot of remodeling and stuff now, and high-end homes and stuff. And I said, look, my benefit is I just promote a business, so I can just show Longview Diesel. I can post under Longview Diesel. Nobody even needs to know who I am. I'm just in the background. I don't care. But I said, people know Cameron Williams. People know Ronnie. Mm-hmm. So whenever you do a reel, it probably has to include you.
It does.
And so people are calling Ronnie. Hey, I want to buy a house. Ronnie, and so you are definitely, you definitely have to find that line between being Grant Cardone and being Debbie, who's been selling houses with her 80s glamour shot, posted on the side of her,
There's a lot of Escalade. Debbies in real estate.
There, especially in East Texas.
I don't know what it is, but like I swear, dude, like there are more Debbies in the real estate business than I've ever seen ever. It's like super common.
You look at the barrier to entry, though.
It's a very low barrier to entry. I've always said, and I will die on this hill. Now, I'm a beneficiary of that low barrier to entry because I literally part-timed it for 18 months before I took it seriously and went full-time. Let me back up. I took it seriously, but like
as far as quitting your day job and being like, this is me now.
Right.
I'm Ronnie the real estate
I did not
guy.
go all in. And if I had it to do over again, I would go all in. But that's easy to say looking back
hindsight's
on it.
20/20.
It's hard to walk away from a secure job with a guaranteed paycheck, especially when your parents brought you up that way. But yeah, I think that the barrier to entry for real estate is entirely too low. I think that the education, the front end education requirements ought to be more rigorous, and then I think that the apprenticeship requirements, once you are licensed, ought to be more rigorous as well.
I mean, you're dealing with probably people's their whole retirement, their most expensive asset.
Most people, their house is literally the most valuable asset that they own.
Then that's true for 90% of Americans, 100%.
Probably more than 90%, if I had to guess. I
mean, the housing system was the whole backbone of the 2008 financial crisis.
Literally one tiny little sector of the economy. I say tiny, but like, you think about all the things that flow through the American economy, and houses just being one of them.
Right.
Like the fact that brought the entire global financial system to its knees, underlines the fact that, these assets are really valuable. And so, but yeah, I've always thought that people that get into the real estate business ought to have to undergo more and better education to do what we do.
I think that, because I mean, I'm not terribly versed in the real estate, but you have a brokerage that you deal with, and your broker is just, they want to make sure that you're producing money and making money. And, like every brokerage is different. And so the requirements for what you're doing, may be different from broker to broker.
That's true. And I will say this, my broker does a very good job of having our back. And that includes, pretty strict requirements when it comes to paperwork and what all that looks like.
But there's no requirement that they do that.
There's not.
Yeah. Well, other than just your whatever the top stuff is, as far as how you run your individual brokerage is up to you. So,
So there is some accountability around like paperwork and stuff. Like the broker is directly responsible for everything an agent does or does not do.
Okay.
And so. But it only becomes a problem when things go sideways. Right. So it's not like there is, it's not like Texas Real Estate Commission's coming in and auditing brokerages.
Right.
Like it's literally complaint driven. So the consumer or another agent files a complaint. Well, that complaint then is investigated, and then they start looking into all your stuff. So, there's a lot of brokerages and brokers that have been brought down because of sloppy or inconsistent paperwork practices or whatever when a complaint is filed. But, our brokerage, Suzanne does a really good job of making sure our paperwork is always good. And she also does a good job of making sure that we're educated and up to date on, the newest things that come up. But, I started my business, the integrity team, back in 2021, I think. And it's still very small. It's just me, 2 agents, and I have an assistant. And but the reason I started that was because, number one, I had more leads coming in than I could really handle on my own.
Right.
And I didn't want to just turn people away. And I didn't want to, turn down the flow of leads. And so I was like, well, what if I just brought in some other people and I could train them
your system, your way,
a little, be a little more hands-on with them because, our brokerage is fairly large. And,
but I mean, a real estate agent is very sink or swim, that's like car sales, I mean, it depends on where you went, where that first place you went. If your first place that you went or the first brokerage you picked up was not one that was nurturing and wanted you to grow, then 2 years you're done. What's the average time that a real estate agent just holds their license, and what's the washout rate?
Yeah, most real estate agents that start make it a year.
Yeah.
And then
whenever their broker fees are renewing for the year or whatever, they make a decision. I don't really want to do this anymore.
And licenses renew on a 2-year cycle. So the 2-year mark is a very common washout point because they'll try it, they'll not have very, very much success, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well, this isn't working out, but I'm not just going to cancel my license. I'll just wait till it's up for renewal.
And then just not renew it.
Exactly. So you see a lot of people that wash out at that 2-year mark. I would say, I don't know exactly what the statistics are. I've heard them before, but I can't really recall them off the top of my head. But I think something well north of 50% of people that start don't make it.
Well, I mean, and then you get into markets like we're in right now. I mean, that's also, in the, they call that burning, like where you burn the forest and you burn the bottom out,
Yeah, the controlled burn.
Your controlled burn. I mean, it just it flushes a lot of stuff out, and it's kind of things like on the financial crisis and stuff, like they say, these companies look like they're doing well, and then when the tide goes out, you see who's been swimming naked, who's who's over leveraged, who's pretending they're doing well, but the second that one thing just doesn't go right, or the market, those interest rates just stay high just for a little bit longer than they could sustain. I mean, you saw a lot of them flipping, getting into apartments and doing slapping some paint on it and then turning around and selling them, or just marking, making it more, they call it market rate adjustment on the rent or whatever.
Yep.
And now you look at it, they're balloon loans, 5 years, so now we're in a lot of these balloon loans are renewing, and they are in the bank's favor because they can always raise the interest rate to whatever the new prime rate is. And so now they went from that 3% where they were cash flow positive to now they're at 8% and they're cash flow negative. And that's happening across 10, 15, 20 properties that they have. It's, the tide went out and they're swimming naked. You know?
I am a little bit worried as far as like the macroeconomics of large multifamily and commercial buildings. I think you're right. I think a lot of people in that sector are over leveraged because really from 2015 up until 2023, money was basically free.
Yeah.
Capital was so dirt cheap, and no one really thought that the gravy train was going to end.
Right.
And now it has, and like you're saying, a lot of these people bought these properties at I don't want to say inflated prices, but at higher prices than what they bought them
because they're like, oh, well, I know they do their research. They know I can renovate these units. Now I can raise the rent, $300, $400 a month. Look at these numbers. I'm going to be cash flow positive. They're also not just gambling their money, though. They'll have investors backing them.
There's REITs. Yeah, real estate investment trusts. And those things are sold as securities.
Yeah. No, I've got some in my portfolio.
You may want to reevaluate that.
Yeah, they're not doing that great.
Those REITs are
they look really attractive in 19 and 20, but
Yeah, no, that's a good point that you bring up, and it's something I've thought on a little bit because, you do the math based on that 3% interest rate, and those rent rolls being where they're at, but you do the math on the prevailing rate of the day. You don't, and I mean, I can say this too. Like, I bought my first investment property in 2020, and at that time, I paid 4.75% on a commercial loan.
Yeah, so it's a point higher than average or whatever prime is probably.
But it was a 5-year ARM, which I was like, whatever, man. But of course, it's this little single family home. It wasn't very much money. It was relatively low risk.
But if you had leveraged that across 10, 20 properties, let's just say you're $200 negative a month. Okay, you can swallow that for a while until the rates drop, you refi it again or something. You can get back there. Yeah. But you're talking about you've leveraged your whole business out, to where you have all this. They probably have a lot of administrative overhead running 20 different multifamily stuff like that. They've got all these people's investment money tied up for them. You already know that they're on Instagram, living with Ferraris and, doing whatever, they do,
rented Ferraris.
Yeah. With their Grant Cardone 10X in it, and they're telling everybody how great it is. And hey, dump your money with me, blah, blah, blah. And then, hey, I saw a big one down in Houston. He went sideways and, everybody lost everything. And, those people, the apartments are still there, of course, but now the banks are having to go in and take them back. And, now they're back on the market, and that guy's just, he just basically mismanaged it or built a business based on, I'm going to have 3% interest rates forever. This is so easy money. Why doesn't everybody do it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, made that mistake of doing their math based on 3%. And they didn't take into account that this is a 3% ARM with, 5-year.
I mean, you saw there was that bank in San Francisco that they shut the whole bank down.
Oh, yeah.
And that was because their, risk assessment did not include, the interest rate conditions that we're in now.
Right.
They thought we would never be here,
Right.
And I didn't know we were going to be here.
Well, I don't even know that it's. I don't know that it's even that nobody thought we'd be here. I think it's that people didn't think we'd be here for 2 years.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're exactly correct.
With really no change. Yeah. I mean, we got up to 8% for a little while.
But I mean, that's exactly how they control the market. It's cooled off. Your people that were calling at 3%, and being like, I can make the money work on a single family. Well, now the math doesn't work at 6-7% to buy a $200,000, $280,000, investment home in Longview, and then rent it for $1,750 a month when your mortgage is $2,350 a month.
That's right.
It just doesn't work.
It doesn't. And now that's the investment side of things. Now
Well, I mean, people moving as well.
The owner-occupied residence, though, I would argue, and I do argue, that if you're not already a homeowner and you're not already locked into a 3%, 4% mortgage, that now, which this is November 2024, somebody ever listens to this in the future, but now is really a great time to get into home ownership if you can stomach the payments for a while.
I feel like that the market has really flatlined as far as where the pricing is, if dropped.
The data definitely shows that. If you look at all of the state of Texas, it got up as high as 18% appreciation per year in 2022. And then in 2023 and 2024, it started just falling off of a cliff. And across the state of Texas, we've had negative price appreciation as of last month. We had about a negative 1.3% appreciation.
And that is solely due to people just can't. I mean, it's not just can you stomach the payments, it's also the lenders. I mean, you deal with it every day. People trying to get approved on a house, that was $200,000 this year. Now it's $300,000 after 2020. Now they're trying to stretch their payments. They're trying to stretch their budget, and the lenders never dealt with a situation like 2020 to where you could get forbearance, live in that house for a year, not pay them $1. What's that do for their balance sheet and their cash flow, And so now they're like, oh, maybe we need to take a closer look at this, and that's what people are dealing with today is the banks are the one controlling who does not get into home ownership basically on their loan strategies and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, capital definitely tightened up started in 2022. 2020 and 2021 felt like they were a little more loose, but also at that time, a lot of people had more cash in their pockets because of stimulus and PPP loans and things like that. These days,
but that also inflated the prices on houses now.
It did.
I mean, how many buyers did you have from California buying stuff over asking during this time?
Lots.
Yeah. Do a video chat. Look at the house. I'm in.
Yeah. I didn't have that many of those personally, but I know a lot of people that did.
Yeah.
And I mean, they'd come over here and throw cash down. And I mean, we always kind of said, around here, California brought their real estate problems to East Texas.
Yeah,
and it's true to a large degree. It's been a tragic situation for a lot of people that grew up around here.
Yeah, and they kind of knew what the houses were going to be or were going to be worth, and now it's just appreciated beyond their reach. And so now their choice is either to spend years saving for that, at least get a 10% down payment. Make it easier for the banks to say, okay, yes, let's do it. Or just get a smaller place, and they're smaller than maybe what they're renting now,
Yeah. I would say though, either way, like the thing about owning a house is it's an investment product.
Yeah.
Just like anything else, like, REITs or index funds or, mutual funds or even individual stocks. The longer you hold that asset, the more value is going to be there over time. No. And I always try to tell people, especially those that are young, like, buy your first house as early as you can because you got to pay to live somewhere.
Yeah.
It might as well be in a place that you own.
Right.
And spend as long as you can in the market owning houses because the longer you can do it, the more value
you're going to have built up over years.
The more value you're going to accumulate, just like any other investment product. But for some reason, people look at homes differently than they look at like index funds and mutual funds. And maybe it's because the cost of entry is cheaper for stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I never saw it that way. When I was in my early 20s, I graduated college and I lived with my parents for a year while I was trying to figure out where I wanted to land and things like that. And I was working. I had a full-time, teaching gig. And I saved up some money, and after a year of living with my folks, I went out and bought my first house. It's like $105,000. Wasn't anything fancy. It was a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath little cottage on 4 acres. I lived there for a while. Sold it after 3 years, made some money. Bought the next house, sold it after 3 years, made some money. Bought the next house. This was in 2019.
Yeah.
And I paid $103 a square foot for this house, and it was nice. I mean, it was, had a lot of custom finishes and features, and the previous owner put in, lots of cool stuff. And sold that one in 2021, not even having stayed there for 2 years. And it ended up selling for like $145 a square foot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just insane. And I never thought I'd see a world like that. And now, we're living in the house that we're in, partly because I made that decision at age 23 to buy that first house.
And I know it's painful, it was stretching your budget to buy that first house.
Oh, 100%, dude. I was bringing home, so I was a first year teacher. My salary was like $38,000. Mm-hmm. I was bringing home like $2,000 a month, maybe 2,300. It wasn't much. And my payment on my house was $803. Mm-hmm. My truck was $215 or something like that. And my student loan was like $230. And I didn't have a huge student loan, thank God.
So you're at like 65% right there.
Yeah, already right off the gate. Like I've got $1,200 per month committed, and I haven't paid electricity, I haven't paid water, and I haven't paid for a cell phone. I haven't paid for
haven't paid for any repairs on that home.
I haven't paid for any repairs on that house. But
I mean, you're only like a breath away from a $10,000 AC system. In East Texas.
I know, and I found a way to make it work, and I didn't have the only debt that I had was my truck and my student loan and the house. So like I didn't have any credit cards or anything like that I had racked up.
Lending was easier back then too.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I didn't really have that hard of a time getting a loan, surprisingly. But anyway, it ended up paying off, and I always just try to tell people, like, buy a house as early as you can. Don't wait, because that time you're sitting out on the sidelines, you're putting. I
mean, somebody else is
benefiting.
It.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I think we're going to see an interesting time here in the next little bit, because all those people that bought those multifamilies in 2020 and 2021. those, like you said,
those are all renewing.
Those are coming up.
I mean, they started getting pretty popular at the end of 15, 16, stuff like that, through 20. And I know that they probably leveled out a lot after, the 21, whenever the interest rates kept climbing. I remember we were doing one of our home builds, and I mean, the interest rate, it felt like I got a letter every freaking 2 weeks that the interest rate was going up every 2 weeks,
Wow.
Because builder loan is just like it's adjustable in the term. And so that can literally change from month to month. So they would say, hey, your builder loan just updated to this, it updated to this, it updated to this. So it's not set, and so the whole time you're doing mental math, and your margin that you were going to make on that house if you sold it for what you wanted is getting a lot smaller, and so that also has to do with cooling the market as well, though, because as soon as we sold that house, we were like, hey, we're going to wait on the sidelines for a while, and so now there's, new houses aren't being built in that price range, and so we're not building anything right now. We're not going to pay that much interest, unless you do it cash.
And the thing is like the whole problem with the American housing system today is that there's just not enough houses to go around.
Yeah, there still isn't.
And, we've got the Harris campaign, and I don't like to get too political on this show, but these are facts. She proposed putting a $25,000 stimulus for first-time home buyers or something like that.
And so
and I'm over here face palming because
what happened the last time we gave a stimulus, and what happened to the house price of the housing. So those $200,000 or $300,000 houses now,
it's like we didn't learn anything.
They're going to be $225,000, $325,000 now.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's like we didn't learn anything from what happened in 2020. And I'm like, okay, you've already got a problem of too many dollars chasing too few goods. This is just freshman economics 101. Yeah. Too many dollars chasing too few goods already, and then we want to put more dollars chasing after those. But
I mean, you're just purchasing votes at that point. Just telling people what they want to hear.
It's kind of what it is. But my thought on this is, and I hope to God somebody in power is listening to this, because I think I have a good idea. If you really want to stimulate the housing sector and fix the problem, you need to give tax incentives to people who are building houses and people who are remodeling houses.
But, they look at them like, oh, man, those people make X amount of dollars a year. They don't need more tax breaks, blah, blah, blah. Well, me, I need some incentive to get off the sideline and build another house if I want to take it on.
Exactly.
The time that you break ground, you're rolling the dice, that you're not going to have some macroeconomic, issue that is going to cause you to lose money on this house, because I've seen other builders, they've got the same area we sold a house out, the same price point, they've still got houses on the market 8-9 months later. You're talking about $2,000 or $3,000 a month in interest you're rolling on that, $500,000 house.
Not to mention while you're marketing that house, you've got the utilities turned on, you're paying electricity, you're paying water, and it adds up really fast. I mean, we did this flip house, my partner and I did, and first one I've ever done, I've never done one before. And we went a little overboard with it because it's close to where we live and everything like that.
And how many unexpected costs did you run into? Things that you never thought of.
Yeah, quite a few.
And that's what happens.
And but we bought it in December of last year thinking, oh man, the interest rates by May, they're going to be in the fives. We're going to be rolling. Like, it's going to be fine. Yeah. And it wasn't.
No.
We finished the house in May. It took us 90 days to find a buyer. It was terrible.
You had one fall through, didn't you?
A couple.
Yeah.
And
there's the lenders controlling the market again.
Well, it wasn't even the lenders in this situation. It was just weird buyers. But not like weird people. Like, they're nice
weird
people.
Situations.
But just weird situations. Yeah. And so but we sat on that house for 3 months, and any margin we were gonna make got ate up. Yeah. You want to know how much money we made on that deal?
How much?
We tallied up all of our receipts at the end of it after everything was said and done, and we made $300.
Wow. You could have had a garage sale.
To split between the two of us for 9 months of work. So for anybody listening that's wanting to get into the building or flipping business, or who thinks that
this ain't HDTV, man.
Hey, I had one. I know of a guy. I'm not going to say who it is, but he's been building houses for a long time, and he built a spec house and did it too nice. Yeah, and ended up. I think he had to rent it for a year or something like that, and then finally got a buyer and ended up going to the table with a $40,000 check.
Just to get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Insane. So I don't think, we're supposed to get a rate cut this week.
Yeah, but I mean, there's more scheduled for next year.
But, there is, but the thing is you
can't base your whole life on that.
You can't, and most people don't understand too that the federal funds rate is for short-term loans.
Yeah,
and
this rate cut next week is already probably baked into the.
It's already baked in.
Yeah,
yep,
so
it's already.
You're not going to call your lender tomorrow and be like, "Hey, I can get a better rate now." Mm-hmm. No, that's been done and dusted.
No, this. Probably starting last week, we started to see rates slipping just a little bit.
Yeah,
and that's when those rumors of the interest rate
that usually
being reduced started to come out, then they're like, okay, but yeah, the real estate market or the real estate rate market, I should say, tends to follow the 10-year Treasury note.
Yeah.
So as the Treasuries go, so goes the real estate interest rates. That's why when they had that last rate cut, rates went down for a minute, but then when bond prices went back up, so did interest rates.
Right.
So it's just one of those things. Like nobody.
So what are the real estate agents? What do they say about they marry the home and date the rate? So you can always refi. So if you, just like you said, if you can swallow it, for just plan on 2 or 3 years. If you can swallow the payment for now, just get into a home or get into the home you want, and then be happy, love life.
Yeah.
And whenever it's time, if the rates drop tomorrow, cool. If they're gonna, it's gonna do what it does. You can refi in a couple years. You'll have a couple $1,000 in loan closing costs or whatever. Yep. But you're not throwing away hundreds of dollars on interest. That you would if on that rate cut. So just do what you're gonna do. Don't worry about who's in the White House. Don't worry about oh man, I heard they're going to rate cut in 6 months, so I'm just going to sit on this, or I'm just going to stay here. Well,
the thing that people don't understand who aren't in the industry, and you do real estate, kind of as a side hustle, so when the rates go down, the prices move inverse.
Yeah.
So what I always tell people too is like when you're buying a house, you're not just buying a house, you're really buying two things. You're buying an asset, which is the house, and you're buying capital, which is the money.
Hopefully an appreciating asset.
An appreciating asset, hopefully. Although I will say a couple of people that bought houses in the last 24 months have contacted me about selling, and it's not good.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, though, I feel that we're pretty blessed in the area that we're at, because you look at, just go back to the people in 2008 and in the financial crisis and stuff. I mean, you're talking about, okay, you're upside down 20, 40 grand. Okay, cool. You just got to stay in this house for a little while longer. And then, your rate cuts, it'll move inverse. But you look at those people, I mean, they were, $500,000-$600,000 upside down. And you talk California's market and stuff like that. So the small changes and the small differences we see here, they see on a way larger scale. And so you're talking about being underwater enough that you're never going to be out from that. You're talking about losing, life savings and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. I mean,
luckily here, you're
$500,000
okay.
underwater.
I mean, if you were $500,000 underwater here, you did something wrong.
You're cooked.
Yeah. I don't know what you did. But,
yeah. No, it's it's going to be interesting to see how things play out in the next year. And,
I feel like it's going to heat up. So, hey, if you're on the sidelines and thinking about it, I'd call my man Ronnie and start looking. I think you have to sign a buyer's agreement now to show a house
that's a whole
with
thing.
The new rules. And so, hey, sign the agreement, go look at a couple of houses and get off the sideline before everybody starts heating up. And then you're left out in the cold. And, now you're one of the California people looking at houses on video chat.
That's right.
Taking $40,000 offers over asking.
That's right. And the thing is the rates are only going to be high for so long, but the asset prices generally, if you look at prices over time, they are going to go up.
Yeah.
And I usually coach people to stay in their house 3 to 5 years minimum. And
that was good advice.
If you could do that, you'll win over the long run.
I mean, I don't know anybody that's going through the whole giant rigmarole of buying a house and just 12 months, I'm going to move,
Some people do.
Just get an apartment, bro, at that point.
Yeah.
You can get you a 3-2 apartment. It's okay. There's a condo.
There's good reasons to rent. There's good reasons to buy.
There are.
There's, all that stuff.
A lot of people are risk averse, and or they don't require a lot, and hey, I don't want to worry about a $10,000 AC system. Cool. You can go live at the reserve, I think it's $1,500 for a single bedroom now over there.
And I get a lot of people that move here from out of the area, and they're like,
they're not sure if they're going to stay.
They're not sure if they're going to stay. Yep. They're not sure where they want to land because they don't know anything about the area.
Yeah.
Like that's a great reason to rent.
That is 100% great. You don't have to buy a house right off the jump. You still got, if you sold a house somewhere else, park it put it in a high yield savings or something right now. I think it's around 4% right now.
Yeah, throw it in Ally Bank.
Yeah, you can pull it back out the second you need it, and go just take your time, And hey, if you don't like the area, just keep on moving too.
Yeah.
I guess.
Pack your bags and move. Although I don't know why anybody wouldn't like East Texas. It's great.
Yeah,
I love it here. But to go back to what you were saying a while ago about the buyer's rep. So yes, that is a thing.
Yeah.
However, I want to say, for anybody, for the 12 people who listen to the show, if your realtor asks you to sign a buyer's rep, it's not because that's our favorite business practice, although there are good reasons for doing that. It's also important to understand that the length of time that agreement's in effect and the market area of that agreement are all of that's negotiable.
Yeah, it doesn't, and the rate, it's all negotiable.
Right. And so, for these people that call me off of Zillow or whatever, and they want to go look at a house in 2 hours, I do an agreement that's only good for that day.
Yeah.
It's only good for that property. That way we're compliant.
Yeah.
And we're good.
And if they like you, they're like, hey, I like this guy's hair.
Yeah.
Let's go look at another house.
My hair's not nearly as good as yours, but
people can't see it, but maybe you'll put a thumbnail or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I have to remember to get a picture of you. I've been forgetting on the last couple of pods, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing, but anyway, so, man, we kind of got on a huge real estate tangent. I want to get back to Longview Diesel and Performance.
Okay, yeah.
So you started off and it's you and it's two techs.
I've got 2 techs at this point, and so just a lot of hard work, determination, and just showing up every day. And I had a coach in high school, Coach Calloway, and he would just talk about pounding the rock. And so you just pound the rock every day. And so you don't have to be a billionaire overnight. I just want to do one thing better, 1%. You just do 1% better. Do it for a year, and then you look back and you're like, well, look how far you've come.
Right.
Just do one thing better. You don't have to. You're not going to make it overnight. It's a long road.
Yeah, you're not going to set the world on fire.
It's a marathon. I mean, look at God. It took 7 days to build the earth. And even He took a day off after that.
Yeah. That's that's a good point. Because
a lot of guys, oh my God, hustle, like get up, do it. Motivational.
So. And to kind of fast forward a little bit, like you built Longview Diesel and Performance from a 3-man show to...
We're top 5 largest independent diesel shops in Texas.
Yeah.
And so we're 18,000 square feet now. We got, I think we have 13 employees. We got 2 front office guys, and then me. I still office up there and oversee things.
That's a pretty lean operation.
Yeah, I mean, but hey, you start on a shoestring and you keep it on a shoestring. And
that's
so
how you make money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to make my service advisors feel bad, but they cost me money. They don't make me money. So they're getting approvals for sure, and they're pushing things through. But at the end of the day, it's just like having any other admin person, secretary, anything like that. It's an overhead cost that goes into the cost of production. And so, the techs are the ones that are actually getting the things done and making the money. And so, I've always been big about, I'm not a technician, but I have a lot of friends that are technicians, and I look at their business operations, and they'll have one person in their shop and then maybe another person, and they're on the phone and they're bouncing back and forth, and their shops never grow. And you're like, hey, you're a great tech, but you can't run a business, Right. And I've got a lot of business friends, that own shops now, and they'll tell me, man, I make so much more money now that I got out of the shop and I got into the office. And I was like, man, I've been trying to tell you for 5 years. The office is where the money's made. It's not just, talking to customers and stuff like that. But if you're worried about working on something and then you're taking phone calls while you're working on something and you're just like, oh my God, get this person off the phone. I need to do this. And, my hands are all greasy. I can't even write down a quote, or I don't even remember what I told them. I can't even look at profit and loss statements or know where I'm losing, or, you forget that you put this part on there so it doesn't get billed out or something, because we do a lot of large jobs. I mean, our average hours, there's like 8 hours for each ticket, and so we're not doing oil changes and stuff. These are all large operations, and,
right.
doing turbos, injectors, and they have a lot of components that go to them. And if you missed a component and you didn't put it in your billing, well, you just gave that away for free. And then that's, how much profit does it make to, or how much gross profit do you need to make that for that net profit you just lost?
So, one thing you said just a second ago was, your service advisors cost you money.
Yeah.
It seems a little counterintuitive to me that you would say that, because they it's like, okay, one of two things has to happen. Either you, Nolan, are the service advisor,
right,
or you pay somebody else to do it.
Right.
So that would mean that your time is worth more than what you have to pay a service advisor. Right. And so you decided to pay the service advisor because your time is worth more.
It's called opportunity cost.
Right.
And that's just, you know, I remember my first year in business, I had bought a lawnmower, but I don't mow my own yard, and I never mow my own yard, and I don't even know why I had a lawnmower. I did it for a couple of years, and it's just opportunity cost.
Yeah.
You know, that 3 or 4 hours on a Sunday. Some people like it. It's therapeutic. You know, they like to get their New Balances out.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah, and that's the reason they do it. Yeah, I mean, but if you want to do it, cool, do it. But it's opportunity cost for me. So I would rather, you know, I used to work a lot of Saturdays, and you know, luckily my wife, she had kind of an offset schedule. She was lower on the totem pole at the police department, so she didn't get weekends off. So I could go work Saturdays, you know, without leaving a wife, you know, or anything like that. You know, just sitting at home being like, man, we have a day off. I'd like to go out with my husband, you know?
Right.
And so I could do that guilt-free, and that really helped me get ahead because, you know, it doesn't matter if me and you have the same business and we're, you know, let's just say we're going head to head. If I'm doing 65 hours a week, 70 hours a week, and you're doing 40 a week, you know, I'm just gonna be better, you know? And so I really took that to heart. And, you know, of course I have everything depends on me at the end of the day.
Right.
You know, every person's paycheck up there, every, you know, vehicle that comes through the door, every customer, everything depends on me because, you know, if I don't do my job, the wheels just fall off.
Right.
And so you have to take that to heart, and it's a lot of pressure and it's a lot of responsibility. And so you know why a lot of people do like to just stay as a W-2, because you can clock out at the end of the day and you can go home, you know? And I try not to, you know, that's what me and you discussed this before whenever I sat down. You have your office out here in the shop. And so you can have a separation between church and state, you know, I like to call it. I don't like to be...
I call it not shitting where I eat.
Yes. And so but my brain works that way. And so like I can leave the office, I leave work there. I try not to work from my phone. I try not to work in my home office, you know? And so I like to be present when I'm home or chill when I'm at home. And so, you know, it's about changing your brain, you know, and so that's this way I have to work, and so that's the way I like to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you're that way. That's why you have an office out here, or you just come out here to bang on drums so you don't annoy people in the house. But
it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I do work inside sometimes, but what and I told you earlier, like I don't even come out here and work a great deal. I usually go into town where I have an office, and usually
it feels like you just
further
you know,
separate.
like that's what they tell people that work from home. They're like, you need to get up, you need to shower, you need to dress like you're going to the office, you need to sit in a dedicated space to this, you know. And it's the same as like when I'm, you know, we're both pilots, and whenever I study for anything on pilots, I get in a mode and I get locked in, and I'm just doing this thing right here. You know, I'm not trying to do 10 other things, because it's one of those things you have to be very present for.
You do.
And being a pilot is a lot like, you know, like I told you in business, and you have to pound the rock. You know, there are a lot of dejecting days where you just feel dumb as hell as being a pilot, especially in the instrument flying and stuff, you know. But just they call it whenever you start flying that you're drinking out of a fire hose, you know, like the knowledge is just coming and you're like, I'll never know all this. I'm never going to know all the airspace requirements. I'm never going to do meteorology. I don't know what the hell's going on, you know? And so business is a lot like that too. There's nobody holding your hand. Now, I can say in pilots, you do have a ground school that's guiding you through the way, and you do have instructors and help and stuff. But
and hopefully in business you have a mentor or somebody that has kind of gone down the road that you can bounce questions off. Do you have a mentor?
Matt, I really don't have as much of a mentor as, you know, just mainly a lot of peers and stuff.
Right.
I would say probably if I do have something that's real complicated or out of the blue, I really just bounce it off a couple of different people that are in business as well, and you know, or other shop owners, you know, if it's related to, you know, shop or anything like that.
Right.
But really, I just think of you know, like, oh, well, who can I bounce this off of and just see what they think, you know?
Yeah.
And that's really a lot of it. And you know, I would want to be a mentor to somebody else that's starting their business. I really feel like anytime I have a opportunity to give advice or something like that, I will. Hopefully not unsolicited and hopefully not too much. But, you know, I've always been of the mind that I don't really like to take advice from people that I don't want to be like, you know, or they're doing better than me, you know. And if I feel like you're successful, I'll listen to you. If I just don't feel like you really know what you're talking about, I'm going to smile and nod, and I'm just going to do whatever the hell I was going to do anyway.
You've been doing a lot of smiling and nodding tonight, so I don't know how to feel about that. No, that's great, and I kind of feel the same way too. You know, I get people that, you know, want to get into real estate, for instance, or want to get into investing, or want to get into piloting, and they call me and ask for my advice, and you know,
I have a feeling that a lot of people just don't know how long of a road this is. You know, like, you know, whenever you start talking about being a pilot or getting in real estate, you know, like they just think, oh, well, I'll just put my glamour shot on the side of my truck and make a couple of reels, and I'm just going to be making, you know, $15,000 a house, you know.
I mean, maybe you are.
I can't do it.
I'm not that good looking.
Yeah, exactly. You know, maybe you need some of those 80s brush pictures, you know. I want to see you really puff it out.
Some glamour shots by Deb.
Yeah, Deb. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to Sears. They're not in anymore, but you know.
Yeah, get you some Olin Mills.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, oftentimes when people want to get into a new business, they underestimate, you know, how long the ramp up time is going to be.
Oh yeah.
And
you shouldn't expect to make any money. Like, I mean,
how long did it take you to get profitable?
Oh man, like I said, I really ran it really lean, and I mean, it's tough to say because I still, even in that shoestring budget, I still paid us a salary every week, whether it was $300, you know, or whatever. I still was paying myself a little money, and I had my own savings to just sit there and eat off of.
Right.
Until I felt like it was off and running, I'd probably say it was like maybe 12 to 14 months or so. So as far as businesses go, that's pretty good. I mean, but you know, the competition is, you don't have a lot of competition for that space, and the barrier to entry for a business like that is pretty high. So somebody that doesn't know anything about that industry, it is very difficult for them to get started. They buy a lot of the wrong stuff. You can be way over your head in the amount of equipment and stuff you have. And just knowledge, you know, is another point. You just can't purchase it.
That was one thing too, is like, you're not a mechanic.
Yeah.
How did you know what decisions to make when it came to equipment, the space you need, the people to hire?
I mean, well, you know, I'd already been in that industry for a few years at that point. You know, I'd seen.
So I guess running the road and bridge trucks.
Yeah,
and all
I'd
that.
seen that, and then I'd ran a similar business before, and so I knew kind of what we used every day and what the kind of bare minimums that you were going to need every day. You know, and some of the stuff you're just like, hey, we don't need that specialty tool until we actually get one of those jobs in. You know,
right?
And so you basically prioritize those things, and you're like, well, I know I have to have an AC machine because I'm pulling cabs and I have to evac the AC. You know, and it's Texas. You know, you're gonna have to have an AC machine. You're gonna have to have lifts because we're pulling cabs and putting trucks up in the air. You have to get under them, so you're gonna have to have you know, a couple of those. You know, just you know, luckily my brother had a lot of tools starting out and just a lot of random stuff, like as far as carts and things like that. You know, but hey, you know, you can get a 3-pack of jacks from Harbor Freight, you know, and those, and those guys will pick up trash that's not even, you're not supposed to be picking up with those jacks, you know, jacking up the front of a truck or something, and they'll bend them and stuff, and then you just throw them out in the scrap pile and go get another one, you know. So no matter, it didn't matter if you bought an $800 jack or a $100 jack, they were going to do the same thing with it and break it anyway, you know. Right. So it was kind of one of those things, but it's really just, you have to, you know, use your best judgment, you know, and that's all I could do. And
I think when a lot of people get into businesses, you know, maybe they take out a loan or something like that, and they go out and they buy all this equipment, and it's like, oh, well, I don't really need all of that. But
well, now they're sitting under loan payments.
Now you got the note.
Yeah, now you got the note. You got the equipment, but you have the note, and then can you bring the business, and can you bring the expertise? You know, because I don't know, I really don't know, but I'm self-taught on a lot of things, and I mean, I had just been reading and learning and everything for years, and then actually doing it every day, seeing the things that break, seeing what goes into the repairs, so many thousands of just not just say unpaid hours that you just watch the techs working or know the parts that go into it, looking on social media on the guys complaining, hey, this broke, this is what we did to fix it, Then you get into, that's where my networking skills help me, as a lot of these trucks now are running, 50 plus modules. You have a module that controls the windows. You have a module that controls, the HVAC. You have a module that controls the headlights. And so you get into a lot of networking and stuff on that. And so having a good idea on the technical side as far as voltages and how things work and just how these cars are basically rolling computers now is it really helped, that I had the networking background and stuff to get into this. And so it's not like the
by
old
networking
days.
You mean like electronics
Computer
and
networking, signals, and it's not like the old guy. I swear to God, I hear this. I still hear it every week. Whenever I answer the phone, and the guy's like, "Well, I just popped. I'm not really too good on these this diesel. I popped the hood, and there's 1,000 hoses and stuff going everywhere. But I'll rebuild a carburetor all day. You got a 350 Chevy 4-block main, blah blah blah. I'm like, all right, man. Yeah, we're not in the 60s anymore, so we've got to get with the times here.
Nobody's driving around with carburetors anymore.
Right, and so we're not tuning by ear. We're not using a timing gun, and stuff like that. So everything is controlled by the computer now. And unfortunately, a lot of people just like, oh, my computer went bad, my car's doing this. Well, that's a 9 times out of 10 I hear that, man, it's not the computer. It's going to be something else. But you need somebody to accurately diagnose this issue. And so can't think of any vehicle that we've ever tapped out on that we haven't been able to diagnose. So that puts us apart as well, as we're not just parts cannoning things and being like, it could be this, could be this, could be this. Just buy all this, $7,000, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's definitely beneficial to you guys and to the consumer when you take a little bit more methodical approach, take a step back, say to yourself, hey, what am I really looking at here?
But you can do it because I started with myself in the office and the techs outside. Then they now don't have the pressure of phones ringing and stuff like that. They can sit there and spend the time they need to actually fix the vehicle, test drive it, diagnose it, and then I'm in the front, dealing with the customers and stuff like that. And so that's kind of, starting that way is the way to go. A lot of guys, they'll be like, I'm a mechanic, I can open a mechanic store, Well, open a mechanic store does not work that well, because you want to work on everything because you're a mechanic,
Right.
Like I don't want to work on anything, I just can't do it.
Right. And that's an important thing too when you're a business owner. Like you've got to know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and kind of stay in your lane.
Exactly.
If you try to get in, over your head or,
If I had tried to go out there and wrench on trucks just to get us ahead, oh man, I would screw it up 10 times more things than I wanted to do, And I would have been frustrated beyond belief because I was like, oh my God, I gotta sit here. I know this water pump takes 3 hours to do, and you gotta take this and this off, So I'm just not a person that can do it, unfortunately. And
well, maybe it's not unfortunate. Maybe it's fortunate.
Yeah, my brother, he can sit there for hours and just, oh man, that water pump we just put on for 4 hours has a bad seal from the factory. Guess we got to take it off and do it again. Okay, get after it. Like I'll make sure the mortgage is paid. It's like that's what I do in the front. And so. That's just now my brother, he doesn't turn wrenches anymore or anything like that. He doesn't have to.
Are y'all partners in the business?
So we're not exactly. I guess we're not partners, but it is a family business, and so it's just veteran-owned sole proprietorship. But he does, even though he doesn't have to come in anymore. He still gets a check from it. And so that's just, it's a family business, and I think. 2 of my nephews work for me there. One of them's a Cummins tech. One of them's a service advisor. Yeah. And, it's just kind of turned into a family deal. They moved back from Lubbock to come work with me. And we're actually kind of my Tyler, I guess he's my cousin. He's my dad's brother kid. So he's a cousin. Yeah, okay. So he's my cousin, but they're just younger than me, so I call them nephew. They're like 10 plus years younger than me.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm always the oldest, and so everybody's younger than me, and so they're always nieces and nephews to me. But he's actually been training under me for years to he manages a lot right now as far as the front end stuff, and I give him a lot of situations. But we're opening a Tyler location, and he's going to run the Tyler location. He lives in Tyler, so it's just going to make more logistical sense.
Are you going to call that Tyler
Diesel Performance? His name is Tyler too, so it works out.
Yeah. So you'd said earlier that everything kind of depends on you, and if you're not there, then it all kind of implodes. But it's kind of moving away from that. It sounds.
Yeah, like. You're trying to. That's always you should be scaling your business. And so I think that's where a lot of people get into is you want to buy a business, you're basically buying a job, and to get it to beyond a job is you need to make it more profitable, number one, to be able to afford someone to bring in and manage it for you. And number two, you need to have your processes lined out. And so, I try and make it a point that, my processes are lined out. People know in this situation, you're going to do this, this, and this, I kind of have stepped to the point of where I'm more of like a break in case of emergency glass type thing,
Right.
So you got somebody mad, you got something wonky, you got a vendor that's asking this, and this, you need another decision made, then you bring it to me, And so some things I will leave, at Tyler's discretion, and I'll say, hey, handle it,
Right.
And so, hey, he'll take over, handle it. And those are more because he's going to be dealing with this as an owner.
Yeah.
And so, that's just part of training.
Yeah. That's great that you're, empowering other people to do those kinds of things, because you're right. One thing people get stuck in is, I'm the only one who can do this.
Right.
Nobody else can do it as good as I can. No, that's not true.
You do need to delegate it. If you want to get to the point that you're out of that you don't have to be there 24/7, Ronnie, if you follow me on social media, it probably feels exhausting because we're always doing something,
we're traveling all the time.
Man, all the time. And so that's just the way it is. I'm telling you, it wears me out, but it's so much
Bless
fun.
your heart.
Yeah. But my wife she's moved into the police department to a position where now she gets weekends off.
Yeah.
So now we both have weekends off. I'm a cool Top Gun pilot, in my VTOL Bonanza, and now we can go do something,
Yeah.
Or we've got friends all over the place. I got friends that own diesel shops and stuff all over the place. So we're always going and doing something, and that's just or going to a trade show or something like that. And that's just the way we live our life. We made the decision not to have kids, a long time ago. Ever, yeah. No, we're good with us, like sleeping on Saturday. My dogs are annoying enough, honestly. With the time change, and everything. Golly, man.
Yeah.
Just wait an hour, I promise. I'll feed you dinner, I promise.
Right.
We've got Hercules. He's a big black Doberman.
As a matter of fact, my wife's texting me as we're doing this, like, one of our kids is throwing up. It's like, oh, okay, great. Well,
exactly.
I have to wrap this up. But anyways, one question I always like to try to ask people, and I've forgotten on the last couple of episodes. What do your days look like?
Oh man, what do the motivators say? You got to wake up at 3:45 every day. Like, the sun even thought about being up, it's still like, no, I'm just joking. I usually get up about 5:45 and, I feed the dogs in the morning. My wife is a kind of a slow riser. She's like a diesel engine. She's got to warm up, you know?
Right.
And so she'll lay in bed, TikToking or whatever she does. And, so I get up, feed the dogs and everything. Lately I had really been stepping my training up as far as like my workouts and stuff. So sometimes I go out on the back deck a couple of days a week and I do a cold plunge for a couple minutes. And I ask my trainer, I'm like, how long do I need to do this for? Oh, just until you're numb. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, no set time. Just till you can't feel your legs anymore. That's cool. Some of these chilly mornings, it's been really rough. You really got to. It really is a kick in the gut.
That's very much a mental game right there.
It is, but once you get in, you're good. But it really helps with my recovery and stuff, and so I really like it. And so it's like somebody just gave you a shot in the heart.
Did you buy a cold plunge or did you?
No, hell no, man. You know how much they want for those things? Oh my God,
they're a lot.
I'm from Big Sandy, Texas. I took a horse trough and put it in the back. I went to Tractor Supply, bought a 57-gallon Rubbermaid container, and I bought a Amazon ice machine and hooked it up to the faucet outside. And now I got these like 6 different connections to make it neck down to like the PEX hose.
Yeah.
And so now I've got ice out there, so I dump all the ice in there. Now there's more efficient ways. My buddy Jonathan Price owns Down for Sound, the speaker company, and he does his every morning. And he bought a deep freezer, and you just unbolt the top and just do it that way. And so that's the way I need to do it, and I will do it in the future if I do it again. But at first I was just like, I'm not sure if I'm going to like this, so I'm not even going to commit to it. So having a water trough was really the introduction, but it is pretty good, and it really does help a lot of the aches and stuff. I've been running a lot, and so then after that, I usually take a shower. I'm at the gym, go to the gym, or go to the trails if I'm running that day. I like to run outdoors. Honestly, I get so bored on the treadmill, even listening to podcasts and stuff. But I usually just listen to podcasts. Usually just like something on economics or something with business, something that
like small business stories.
Yeah, just like small business stories. Just something about with other CEOs and stuff, and not really for motivation, just because I like to hear about things that they struggle with and things that they're doing. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about like the CEO of like Intuit, so they're like QuickBooks and Credit Karma. They're talking about things that are so far over my level, man. I'm just glad to be there.
Yeah,
and so I just like to listen to stuff like that, and I like to keep up. I read a lot, and so I like to keep up on basically everything on the world. And my wife always loves that she can ask me any type of question. And I know confidently what the answer is. Whether it's like something in history or current event, and I may make it up half the time with her, and she can't really tell if I'm making it up until I finally start laughing. But
you're wrong, but wrong with confidence.
Yeah. That if you do it, it's just like you can walk in a restricted area with a clipboard, man. Nobody will question you. No. Like you look like you're important and you're doing something.
Yeah, walk in there like you own the place. Put on a hard hat.
Exactly. And so I always like to listen to something like that while I run. It's not, I used to listen to just really crank you up music and stuff. But man, the podcasts are just so much better. And
there's so much good stuff on podcasts.
There is. And I mean, I'll listen to like some guys that do like cellular biology, like I'm not talking like, oh man, I'm like in the science of it, but just him recommending things about like whenever you wake up in the morning, you really need to see a lot of light right off the bat, and you need to turn on the bright lights and stuff. And really, it talks about, the way your body's designed or been evolving over thousands and thousands of years is things that you need to see, and then at night, you need to see the light like dimming down, or it's good if you see the sun going down because that's a natural rhythm of your body and stuff.
Right.
And, ways to sleep and stay asleep and just maybe you pick up one thing that might change how you do your daily routine, and so you just listen to it, and then I'm in the office usually by like 8:30. We open at 8:30 there. Really, I like to offset the normal hours of 8 to 5 because there are a lot of school zones and stuff, and so it allows my guys to sleep in a little bit, and they can also not have to worry about speeding through school zones and stuff because you're going to hit 2 or 3 of them during that 7 to 8 a.m. period. So they're kind of offset, so they actually get to miss school zones and stuff a lot of times. So
it's a good thought.
Yeah, and so we did that, and so I'm there usually just. Man, if I'm not traveling somewhere, I'm at the office. Bring my lunch most days. If I don't, I just DoorDash something. I don't really like to leave for lunches unless I'm meeting somebody like yourself or something like that. I usually try and get one of those lunches in a week. Just to go meet and catch up with somebody. You get caught up in your own stuff a lot of the times, and so it is nice to just be like, hey, let's just go grab something.
Yeah, I'm really bad about that. Like I'm kind of like you. Like I'll go pick up something for lunch and just eat it at the office. And I always tell myself, like, I'm going to be more intentional about going to lunch with people, and then I never do a good job of it. So,
and I mean, I think social media helps, honestly, because I don't feel like I have to reach out to Ronnie all the time and, just like, hey man, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I saw, hey man, you just got your instrument currency, how was the air, stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. Well, I've already touched base with you. I don't have to go have lunch with you. And, it's just, and people like, they come up to me all the time like, oh yeah, I know Nolan, blah, blah. Well, I don't even know you, but I guess you're on my Facebook. So you follow me and things, they'll ask me questions about things I'm doing and stuff like that. And sometimes you think nobody's even paying attention.
I know. And you're like, and you're sitting there and listening to this person talk. You're like, what's your name again?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And And so we, and then, I mean, really, honestly, it's just a lot of office work. I mean, that's just all it is. I mean, if I'm not traveling to a conference or, going out and meeting with people, I mean, that's just what it is. And really a lot of my, like, as far as talking, like, I've got Longview Diesel, and then we do, our family has a real estate business, not family money by any means, but just me and my brother and our wives have put together into our own little company. I was just like you, my parents are just W-2 wage earners, like my dad, I would say one of the, maybe it factored into my kids' decision is, that my dad had me when he was 18 and my mom was like 17. She always jokes that I was at her graduation for high school. And, I knew that my parents probably struggled a lot harder than they probably should have,
right,
or needed to if they hadn't have had me. And so my dad went to work at a box factory, and he was always working like night shifts or oddball shifts, and so I had to entertain myself a lot of times. And we drove an old 1965 Custom 500, which is like a big 4-door, like I'm talking, peak 60s era car that was all like, it was like white primer, and nice. And so that's the first like a thing that we had to keep going, is that. And, we were just like probably like 2 miles from my grandparents' house, and they don't call anybody for anybody. HVAC, nothing, like everything they do themselves.
They're going to do it ourselves.
They're going to do it ourselves. And so they did a lot of that while I was growing up. And I never went without as far as like, having like a hard story or anything. My dad always made sure food was on the table, that we always had plenty to eat, blah, blah, blah. He did a great job, and, he worked at a lot of factory jobs, I'd say. Like he's quality assurance now for like vessel manufacturers and stuff, which he's built himself up, but who knows, what direction his life would have taken if he hadn't have, had me. And so I think about that a lot. And, so I didn't want to have a kid at 18. That was one of the reasons that I kind of fled town and went into the military, and, I don't know if it just translated into my life now that we just continue to work, and we work in our family's company. My brother, they don't have kids either. And so we just have fun doing our thing. Yeah. So that's how we can travel so much. Good Lord, you don't even want to know that probably the person who made the most money this year was my dog sitter, because she stays at the house, and me and my wife both work long hours, so she actually comes by in the middle of the day and lets the dogs out, run around, because they're Dobermans, and they got all this energy to blow out of them. And then I take them to daycare a couple of days a week too.
Oh my gosh! And
so
spoiled.
Oh, tell me about it, man. And so we don't have kids. I don't have to deal with it, but I'm telling you, they are a handful enough. And I kind of got off on a tangent there, but like I said, my dad did a great job, and my grandpa, and they really instilled work ethic. Now I'm proud to say I do call people. If the HVAC breaks, I'm calling somebody. But I remember we didn't have central air and heat until I was like, I don't know, maybe a freshman in high school, and we in the house that they live in still is an old church. From the 1800s.
Wow.
Maybe built early 1907 or something. But it's like whenever he bought it, probably like $5-10 or something. I don't know. But it didn't have floors in it, and so it's a pier beam, but it didn't have any floors. So I remember we had to do the floors, and I remember redoing the floors at some point. And all the renovations and stuff we did ourselves, and we ran all the duct work for the AC and all that. And oh my God, I've never been somewhere so hot in my life as that attic.
Oh yeah.
I think, and we did the roof like every probably 5 or 6 years. I don't know why our roofs only lasted 5 or 6 years. It's supposed to be 30-year shingles. Maybe we're just not very good at it. But we re-roofed that thing like over and over and over. Wintertime, frozen, crawling up under the house to fix pipes and stuff. Yep. I mean, so I may call people now, but I've done it before, and working our own cars and stuff. But hey, that's why I don't have a problem running a service-based business.
That's right. That's right.
I don't remember, what was the original question?
How do you spend your days?
Oh, well, just office. I'm just boring, and then hopefully I'm home by 6:37 every night. And my wife is generally at home at that time, probably now, and she feeds the dogs for dinner, and then she cooks dinner. And so, I get home, and usually I've got like an hour or two, like we'll watch TV together and chill and just kind of talk about our day maybe. But that's a general day of my life. It's
cool.
Nothing glamorous.
Just wake up and
just hit
grind.
the gym. Yeah, no, you just go to the gym. And honestly, that's a big thing that I think that a lot of people don't do is just do something for yourself. Like I know it sucks going to the gym. I hate going to the gym, but you know what? I do it for me, and nobody is going to look out for you but you. Yep. This isn't the military where they make you go to PT at 5 a.m.
Yeah, and you only got one body.
You do, and you're stuck in it. I see guys that are 7 years old and they look like they're 95. They can't move. No mobility, and they're going into a home as soon as they can put them in a home.
Yep.
And I do not want that to be me. And so I do focus a lot on just, hey, this mobility and just doing good workouts for me and what makes me feel good, Yeah. And so that's one of the reasons we did the Spartan race we did a couple months ago with my buddy. Yeah, it was like 6.5 miles or something. It was like obstacle course race. And oh my God, dude, I don't know why I signed up for that. But my buddy Mark, he does them in Dallas. He's like, hey man, come on. So I'm like, I'm just in a phase where it's like, hey, just don't say no. Everything, you never know what's presented to you. And, it was something to look forward to. You're just working out every day. Why not train towards something,
Right.
I'm not going to run the Boston Marathon, but I can go just do a little obstacle course race with my buddies.
It could be a Tough Mudder.
Yeah. That's it, And so, get nice and nasty and then, let the Cybertruck drive me home,
There you go. Well, man, got to wrap this up. I got to run in and give my wife a hand. So, but thanks for taking the time to do it. I really enjoyed our conversation, and we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah. We'll finish my story, I guess.
Yeah.
We go off on a lot of other.
I know. It's kind of lends itself to that, though. You get talking about this thing. Get on that road,
I think you probably only asked like 3 questions, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know, but nonetheless, I think it was a good conversation. I think people will enjoy it, and man, I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
All right. See you. Bye. Hey guys, it's Ronnie. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Small Business Stories. If you enjoyed this podcast, please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe to the show. Also, we would love to hear your feedback on what we're doing, so if you would please leave a comment, that would be awesome. Also, if you or someone you know would like to be on the show, please reach out to me on Facebook at facebook.com/GodfreyRN. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time right here on Small Business Stories.